In order to do the pressure test, I have to block off the exhaust port, and the way to do that is with a piece of rubber and supposedly the best way to do it is with the exhaust. Now I really think this thing is clumsy as all heck, so I'm going to try it. And the idea here is that I've got a piece of rubber that I poked some holes in. I poked a hole in the rubber with just a sharp point. So that actually holds that in place. Let's see if I can do that. If I'm going to get away with it here too. So I've got a piece of bicycle inner tube over there, and it's going to tend to want to wind up, isn't it? So you work it a few times. Let's see if this will actually go back in here. Well, it looks like the rubber's still there. The question is that piece of rubber still there? Looks like it might actually be. So I've screwed down the muffler with a piece of rubber, just blocking it off. Easier said than done, but looks like it might actually work. I think this little hole right here is the impulse hole. So I'm going to use my midi vac and put pressure there, but I need something to block that. As if it was designed for it. This comes with the midi vac kit. Seems to fit perfectly. I don't know how I got that lucky, but let's see if it actually holds pressure. So let's keep going and see if I can dismantle the rest of this. This doesn't want to let go. I don't know why, but I'm suspicious that it's this intake piece here, which you need to fold into itself, push it through, oh, there's another piece that comes off. There's a metal ring around the outside here. Now, this wants to come off, but two more things we forgot. One, this line right here. I'm going to put this screw simply back in place so we don't lose it. And then the impulse line over here. Just plugs there. And now oh, there's a second line. I forgot. Just a spade connector here. There. The top handle comes off. So let's do a proper pressure test. We've got the intake blocked off. The pressure goes in the impulse line, which is here. And this actually happens to be a 3/8 inch extension for a ratchet, which apparently works brilliantly. Spark plug is back in the hole. Got some soapy water, going to put it on the seals. That seal seems to hold. This seal has a leak. Tiny little bubbles. And the shaft has some play in it. You can hear that. So up and down, there's play. See the bubbles? That seal's no good. So, time for new bearings and seals. So, I do have an excuse for a full teardown on this. So let's keep tearing her down. This rubber intake boot seems a little on the stiff side. So speaking of that rubber intake boot, I'm kind of wondering how to get that apart. This plastic piece here looks like it just comes right up. Looks like it should anyway. So it feels like I'm going to break something. Let's push this impulse hose down and through. I'm kind of hoping I can get this whole piece on here. Let's take the muffler back out. That might have something to do with it. Now that we know something's up here. I've got the exhaust out here. Get that cleaned eventually. Looks like this tank comes apart just like that. I will end up replacing both of these, I think. So we'll do new fuel lines and filter. This tank is okay otherwise, I think. This part just came off the tank, so don't want to lose that over on the metal tray. So now we've got the motor exposed here. You know, I thought this is going to be worse than it is. This is not too bad. This plastic piece does look like it does come off of here. At least it should. Yeah, the plastic piece just comes off. Easy though. You gotta go easy. Just a ring that holds the boot on. Actually, let's take this spark plug out. Spark plug out. So I'm going to put a little bit of lube on here to try to get this off safely. So you work this rubber boot off. So I just stuck this in the ultrasonic, so it helps a little bit. You're not going to want to stick the whole thing in the ultrasonic if you're not replacing the bearings and the seals, but helps get at least a little bit of the gunk off. So let's keep dismantling this thing and see where we end up there. You know what? Before we do that, let's see if we can get some timing numbers. Now that we have this thing torn down, I'll bet we can get some timing numbers on it. So if by some stretch of the imagination this is the same thread, which apparently it is. Ha! Alright, so my timing wheel does actually go on here. That's incredible. So that's 46, that's 47. Go around the other side. Gently. Okay, so now we have a balanced wheel, and just for giggles we can look inside here and make sure indeed we're at top dead center. It looks like it's close. It's confirmed close by the numbers. Good. So now what we do is we're going to get some timing. It's much trickier on this tiny engine, but first see light there. Stock timing is about 99 on the exhaust. Intake is 75, 76, 77, 77, 78, 78. And let's see if I can see these transfers. Not that side. The piston goes down, the transfers do open, but that cannot possibly be smooth. Alright, so about there. Where are we at there? Transfers. 100, 110, 20, 30, 135? Does that sound right? 135 for transfers. I'm going to have to check online and see if that's right. Well, it seems like those transfers are going to need a lot of work. Let's take the cylinder head off. Assuming this is also T27. So, 4 cylinder head bolts. And this is where I'm going to transition to a different magnetic tray. It's cute. Look how tiny that thing is. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty much on the verge of a problem based on the lines I got here. simple ring. It's pretty smooth though. I'll go stick that in the ultrasonic. It's really cute. Man, that's tiny. A little bit of a rub here. Let's see if we can visualize that play. I'm pretty sure that that's a bad thing. No other saw I've put together has play like that. Okay, so these circlips, looks like they're held in probably by, oh, or best gotten out probably by a tiny little screwdriver. How about a sharp thing? Good. Now these are destined to go flying across the room. So you need something that's nice and sharp, goes down in here and lift up slowly. There, it lifted. I can slowly lift the whole thing out here. Circlips go there. Now sometimes I can tap these rings out, sometimes I can't. Sometimes I can push the piston pin out, sometimes not. In this case, not. So now I need to tap it out. So I've got an Allen that's appropriately sized for the piston pin. And you don't want to put any force on the connecting rod. I think they actually have pullers for these. That's really cute. Base gasket. Base gasket just generally lifts up. A little bit of oil underneath is good. That came up nice. Now the problem with looking at this, I go, gee, I could mill that. If by some stretch of the imagination I can actually put this case in the mill, I can mill that. Just so we have metrics and numbers, let's put the micrometer on the base gasket, so we have an idea how thick that is stock. About the same as the Husqvarna. See, 17, 18 thousandths. That's, yep. Which means if you do a base gasket delete on this, it's going to be kind of tight. I suppose you could get away with it, maybe, but 35 thousandths was a squish. You take 18 thousandths away, that's a 17 thousandths squish you're going to end up with, which is going to be very high in the compression ratio and not very much room for error there. So I think it's certainly way more accurate to mill this, if at all possible. Supposedly, this is not a difficult case to get apart. Let's take the ignition coil out. Kind of likes it. It looks like a 262 ignition coil, actually. There's a holder here. Now what am I going to do with that? That's got some type of a rubber grommet. Two bolts, machine bolts with washers for the ignition coil. do it. So this holder piece, whatever that is, peels off of there. Yeah, let's see if we can get, well, that's another way to do it. So we get this part of the ignition coil out of the way. We can then pull this, the ignition coil boot, and then you should be able just to pull this right on through. Let's take the case apart. Again, supposedly this is easy. So let's start with the obvious. Three bolts that hold the bearings together. Three machine screws. Again, I'm going to change up my magnetic tray. It looks like these two bolts not only hold the AV mount down, but they may also hold the case together as well, so we don't want to make that mistake. That's the oil tank vent. These hold the dog on. I don't know if they hold the case together as well, but might as well take those out. Next. It's best to get the sawdust out of here, that way you get nice good grip on these. Sometimes you don't have any choice. Sometimes it's better just to have the impact do it. These are machine thread. A little, whoa, what's that? Okay, well, piece came out with that. Oh look at that, bolt down here. Bolt buried by the bar stud here. No idea what this bolt is for. I assume that doesn't hold the case in, but that's a short one. Right there is a short one. Last one. Gotta count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These two AV bolts, 7, 8. Gotta count them. Now this thing comes apart with ease, theoretically. So I use the nut, the flywheel nut, to help knock it. Now we have the case halves to deal with. We have a pretty elaborate looking case gasket. Let's see if I can get this off. Pretty impressive, actually. Very nice. I probably won't reuse it, but still. Let's see here. That bearing doesn't feel great. I'm glad we're fixing this. Let's see if we can get that seal out. Now, the one thing you don't want to do, you don't want to mess up the case when you're removing the seal. And the Husky seals, they just just work it around. I happen, there we go. Beauty. I have this tool that I made out of an old screwdriver. It works brilliantly for this. And you don't want to scratch this surface where the seal rests against. Now we've got a bearing in here that we have to knock out. Heat this up, knock that out. New bearing drops in, new seal, crank goes in. Should be a piece of cake, same thing on the other side. This is just a 3/8 socket, 9/16. Happens to be the right diameter to fit in there. So all I gotta do is heat that up. And bang on this whole thing a bit. I gently heat the case. Just above 200. Ideally somewhere around 250 is good. So a few more seconds like this. The hotter, the more likely this is to work. Done. Done. Beauty. That's that. Now we clean everything, put it all back together. But I need some parts first, so I'm going to go order those. One thing that drives me nuts when I don't know how to do something and it doesn't seem apparent, this AV mount comes, just unscrews. It's the one by the oil tank. It just unscrews. I started grinding on this inside here, which you probably don't want to do, because I thought that held it in, but it doesn't. this just unscrews with a 20mm wrench. Now the problem with these is you really need a cone wrench. This fits, but the thickness here to grab is very small, so you need to make sure it's down and then turn, and you got it. So I'm going to take off this AV mount and I'm going to take this flippy cap out, mainly because I want to put this on the mill and I need to be able to grab it here. It is needed to be a flat spot. I'm going to put the two halves together just temporarily and going to go stick the whole thing on the mill and just have some fun. Going to deck this. Now, looking at this very carefully here, there is not very much meat here to mill. So I'm only taking 15 thousandths off, which really isn't much. But even so, there still is not that much meat. So I got to be careful with how much I take off. Real careful. Yep. So the only thing that holds a flippy cap in is this little ball attachment, which comes up like that in the slot in there. So again, back in the ultrasonic, I'm going to make sure this is clean. We're going to stick it on the mill, do some decking, and that'll be probably my next section of videos.